Hey, welcome to 1500ESPN.com. I'm Derek Wetmore, and this is Andrew Kramer. Just got done watching Vikings Wednesday practice. We're going to analyze kind of the Redskins game coming up on Sunday. Talk about Bridgewater versus their heavy pressure that they might bring, as you saw Monday night versus the Dallas Cowboys. Talk about how the Vikings can neutralize their deep threats. And we're also going to talk about Anthony Barr, who got a little love this week. If you enjoy any of the analysis that's on the video, also check out the Purple Podcast, because we're going to go way in depth with all that stuff. Short video, but podcast, we get to kind of stretch it out quite a bit. So we break down everything, previewing this upcoming game. Check out that podcast on the show page. So for this week coming up, Andrew, you saw Monday night, the Cowboys-Redskins game. Washington brought a lot of pressure to Cowboys QB Tony Romo. Do you expect a similar game plan against the Vikings?
I'm not too sure, actually. Week to week, they change what they do. It was really out of character, actually, for Washington to be sending their safeties as often as they did. I believe Brandon Merriweather was sent on 11 blitzes, Ryan Clark 6 blitzes against Tony Romo, and it worked. So with this Vikings team, though, the Redskins could be looking at a game film and saying, hey, we don't need to send extra pressure after what they've allowed this season. So it's kind of hard to tell with a team like that. But one thing Jim Haslett likes to do, their defensive coordinator, is send pressure regardless of who they're playing. It's going to vary on how much pressure they're sending. So regardless, Mike Zimmer is going to be preparing for those kind of dynamic blitzes, but whether they get them or not, we'll have to see.
Change along the offensive line for this week of practice.
Yeah, it stays what it was last week, but we were assuming if Vlad DeCoste got healthy, he might take back his starting role. Well, this is something that you won't hear the coaches say, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It seems Joe Berger is going to be the starting right guard. He was still in the right guard spot today on Wednesday. Yeah. Vlad DeCoste was practicing in full and was with the second team. And another interesting point, rookie David Yankee was practicing at left tackle for the second team, and they had Austin Wentworth at left guard. And Wentworth can play tackle, guard, or center, and Yankee can play guard or tackle. So the fact that they're working Yankee at tackle, to me, is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's in a backup capacity right now. Of course, he's still raw, he's still a rookie, but that is definitely an interesting development to keep eyeing in the future. Kind of flipping over to the other side of the ball, the Vikings are going to come into this matchup where the Redskins have these deep threats, these speedy receivers, not only Deshaun Jackson, but Pierre Garçon, guys who stretch the field, no matter who the quarterback is, whether it's Robert Griffin or Colt McCoy. We still don't know that. The Vikings say they don't know who it's going to be, but whoever it is, they have those receivers that stretch the field. How are the Vikings going to counter that this week, do you think?
Well, it's going to be difficult because Mike Zimmer obviously likes to use Harrison Smith down in the box. You see a lot of single high safety looks. He likes to test pressures and likes to put his safeties in man coverages, which puts them up at the line, sometimes on slot guys. However, when you got a guy like Deshaun Jackson, you want to keep some guys back and maybe not expose yourself as much or make yourself as vulnerable with putting that pressure up front. So I would probably expect a little more cover two shells, using both safeties back and not, necessarily bringing one forward just to try and cap that. They did that a little bit against guys like Devin Hester and some other premier speedy threats that they've faced so far this season. But the biggest thing is when you're facing an opponent that has that kind of speed, you can't mess up. You can't have a missed tackle. Right, yeah. If you remember Captain Munnerlyn tried to go for the ball on Devin Hester on an end around of his, and he turned that into, I believe, a 30-yard run for a touchdown. So if you make one kind of mishap like that, those guys can kill you. And right now, the Redskins are first in the league with 8.5 yards per pass. And Jay Gruden, who coached with Mike Zimmer in Cincinnati, has an offensive scheme that resembles a lot what they did with A.J. Green and Andy Dalton there. And Mike Zimmer knows that pretty well. So it'll be an interesting matchup to watch.
And that shell you talk about, that's to kind of counter so you have to trust a guy like, say, Josh Robinson or Captain Munnerlyn to keep step for step. You don't want that man coverage on the outside.
Yeah, so basically the shells means it just gives you safety help over both sides of the field, not just relying on one safety to center the field and then watch both sides. So that just basically allows you, like you said, to have Xavier Rhodes and Josh Robinson or Captain, when they're in nickel or base packages, have some help over the top.
Anthony Barr got a little bit of love this week. We all knew he had a great game, and of course he was sort of the hero after that overtime strip fumble touchdown. But even before that, Barr had a pretty outstanding game and really just capped, as we wrote about on 1500ESPN.com, really capped a fantastic first half of his rookie season. He's starting to get some pub around the league now, Defensive Player of the Week. Was a stat you gave me before the video, how rarely rookies win that award?
Yeah, according to the NFL, I believe it was the NFC communication spokesman, says that Only 6 rookies have won that award in the last 10 years.
That's some love.
For NFC Defensive Player of the Week. And one of the guys who won it was a guy Mike Zimmer says was his best rookie in his 25-year NFL coaching career in DeMarcus Ware, who's now with the Denver Broncos. So it's a great company to be with. And quite frankly, Anthony Barr in this first half has made a strong case for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's within reach. I mean, not watching the film as closely on the other teams to know exactly where he compares, but how impressive you've been, just the fact that he's able to fit into the scheme, even when they were asking him to do some defensive line, some linebacker. It's been mostly linebacker recently because they've had injuries.
Yeah, yep.
But how impressive you've been that this seamless transition kind of from the 3-4 in college to being an outside line or strong side linebacker in this system has gone so smoothly.
I think I'm as impressed as anybody, and even though Mike Zimmer doesn't necessarily want to let on to how impressed he is.
He's been understated about that, huh?
He has. His quote today was basically, I thought he'd come in and do what he's been doing, and
He's
it's hard.
Player.
He said it's hard to tell with transition guys who are playing different positions because obviously he went from a 3-4 outside linebacker to a 4-3 inside or outside linebacker, excuse me. It's tough to tell with transition guys. Then he goes, it's only been 8 games. So we'll see. It's just one of those things where Mike Zimmer wants to keep being tough on his rookie. He doesn't want him to get a big head too early, which is smart. But at the same time, we can sit here and recognize that it is one heck of a game he's been playing.
Well, and on Monday, Zimmer said, when somebody asked him, how would you compare him to DeMarcus Ware? He said, I don't like to compare those guys. DeMarcus has had a fantastic career. Yeah. Keep in mind, it's only been 8 games for Anthony, so let's hold off on the Canton votes so far.
Exactly, and that's just going to be that's going to be the kind of style he wants to bring with Anthony Barr. And Mike's a guy who's been around long enough, been around enough young guys to know what he needs to do mentally to keep them focused, and that's exactly what he needs to do.
Good stuff, Andrew. We'll have plenty more on this on the Purple Podcast. So we're about to go record plenty on the Washington matchup, on Anthony Barr, Teddy Bridgewater, all of this stuff and more. So check out the Purple Podcast on SoundCloud or on iTunes or on 1500ESPN.com. However you consume the content, we'll have the Vikings analysis there. Easy for me to say, right? Keep checking back to the website, 1500ESPN.com, for all your best Vikings coverage, analysis, opinion, news, notes, videos, podcasts, etc. For Andrew Kramer, I'm Derek Wetmore. Thanks for coming. We'll catch you next time.